What's up, family? Welcome to episode 10 of Men versus Ego, Stoicism, and Leadership. Unfortunately, the video part of this podcast didn't record, but the audio did. I have a great guest on there, Andre. Please enjoy and give it a thumbs up. Thanks for coming by. Enjoy the audio. Welcome to Men versus Ego, episode 10. Ego, Stoicism, and Leadership. I have a special guest today, a great guy, good leader to have around you. My colleague, my friend, Andre.
Again, brother, I really appreciate the request that, have me on your podcast. I was very nervous when you originally asked me because I've never been approached to do this. So this will be my first time legit talking about myself in depth to the topic that we have coming up. So definitely thank you. I hope my story and the things I say help your viewers because it's helped me in my career and my personal life as well in terms of development as a decent human being.
Thank you, Andre. And it's a pleasure having you, man. I'm happy you said yes to the podcast. You're episode 10, though. Welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
For sure. The first chapter, right? Why is ego so easily disturbed? I'll let you take the first shot at it. Your point of view, and I'll put myself in there. But why is ego so easily disturbed, man?
Well, for ego, if you want to go to like the definition of it, it's like your unconscious and your conscious sense of personal identity or yourself, and it's the source of a lot of like self-esteem, motivation, whatever they want to show the world is how they want to be perceived. And a lot of times when someone addresses ego, it's mostly like a negative connotation or negative comment, like, oh, that guy has such a massive ego, that girl has a massive ego. Because a lot of times it's talked about like selfishness, worry, fear, stuff like that. And before I answer the question, like going on to ego in general, it's a continuous thing because everyone has an ego and we slip up sometimes when we know that we have the ability to kind of like recede back from working on ourselves and resorting back to how we were before. And it's all about identifying, being human, understanding, being humble that, you're not perfect. And it's like a daily process to, understand why you act the same, why you act the way that you do, and the triggers that affect it. So to answer your question, I think having an ego that is detrimental to your organization or developing soldiers is a big issue. I would say me personally, growing up in the ranks, I've also experienced leaders to where it was very difficult to talk or address them, or to just bring up issues like, hey, Sergeant, I have a problem. I need help. And the ego in them is like, why are you telling me? Like, why don't you tell this person? Because they feel maybe they're more important than they actually are. So my little issues as a, E4 and below soldier is beneath them, which, if they're the last person I speak to in regards to like a very serious situation and they blow me off that way, what kind of mentality will I have with like the other leadership within the Army? Or within the armed forces, So it's like, I already told this NCO, he said pretty much for me to, go kick rocks. And then you end up hearing things that, soldiers do things to themselves, harm others because they're not being heard. Also, in terms with mission, if there's something going on to where it's like, hey, maybe there's a better way to do this, and then you address it, and you try to be as, professional as cordial as possible to your subordinates as well as your higher enlisted or officers that's with you. Sometimes what you say may be taken as offensive. I've experienced that. I've seen it to where maybe they felt challenged, like, how dare you? Or, it's kind of like an unspoken thing to where if you suggest something to someone around other people, it makes them feel like they don't know what they're doing in that position. And for me, I didn't see it that way. I was just trying to help. But there's a lot of situations to where ego can also erode cohesion in the group with not being able to speak to someone, in terms of taking care of a mission or, getting an RFI or what have you. It affects communication and it affects the mission. And we can't, at my level, it's a lot of moving pieces and parts. So you got to be able to communicate with everybody, regardless if you are on the same page with things or not. It's just that professional, that they exude professional character in order to make sure that they're able to provide you that information. You can do the same for them.
Okay. It's a long answer, but it was a good answer, man. To add my 2 cents to it, we both follow Robert Greene, right? The author of the 48 Laws of Power and the Laws of Human Nature. And one of them, it says, never outshine the master, right? One of the laws. And to me, that law showed me like, hey, you might know a little bit more stuff on this subject or that subject than your higher echelon, your leadership, but don't go out of your way to show off because you're going to stir up some like, oh, it's like not resentment, but like envy in a way. So do what higher ask of you, right? Your boss, your manager, whoever, but don't go out of your way to show off in front of them, because then low key, maybe subconsciously, you'll stir up some envy and like, nah, I can't have this, I'll lose my position, or maybe I'll be frowned upon or whatever. Ego is a very fragile thing, man. A lot of people go all their lives without them knowing that they have a big ego. We all have egos, but obviously it's when we keep it in check. Like, hey, man, I don't know this much stuff on this subject than you, and I'm humble enough to know that. All right, but don't belittle them. But I'm saying I'm learning. You're for this subject, you're the SME. You're the subject matter expert on this subject, right? And I'm taking all my Q's and A's from you. So thank you, brother. How does ego and leadership differ in a good or bad situation? That's a tough one, man. But
So I think leadership, in my opinion, is like a spectrum, because there's different types of leadership. There's leadership where it's like the standard, to where, you're disciplined, and, when you're given an order, you follow it with no question. And then there's, with the new age coming in, you can't always act and conduct yourself as a leader, which I've learned and experienced through time. You can't talk to soldier A the same way you would talk to soldier B or C, because soldier A may not like loud noises or yelling. So I know for some people, if you yell, they're only concerned about, why is this person yelling at me? Not much to say that they're really listening into what you are actually saying. They just want the yelling to stop. So a lot of times you have to tailor your leadership style instead of the direct, me telling you what to do and yelling in your face approach. Hey, come over here by this tree. Let's talk for a little bit. So are you good? What's going on? And then that might open up a conversation that soldier, Sarn or sir or whatever rank you are. I've got this going on. I'm not really focused at work. I hear what you had to say. I understand. I acknowledge it. I'll do better. So in my experience as a soldier and as an NCO now, both have their benefits in terms of leading troops. I understand life or death situations. Obviously, you're going to be yelling. But for the environment that I primarily work in, it's really no need to really yell. It's more cordial conversation. And again, your environment might differ from place to place. You kind of just have to have understanding of your surroundings and just basically adjust and tailor yourself to whatever leadership style is going to be most beneficial in that situation.
And to add to that, man, I think a lot of people, not just service members, but people in general, would appreciate if you talk to them behind closed doors, in front of the whole, not in front of the whole crowd, right? Because it's kind of like you're embarrassing them, you're belittling them, and it's just like, like you said, let's be cordial about it. You can have constructive criticism behind closed doors, or how we say it, not the paper trail one, but there's a corrective training, right? You can have corrective training behind closed doors. You don't have to have it in front of everybody for everybody to see, because again, you're going to stir up all sorts of resentment, and that person is going to look at you differently now. Like, oh, I just,
Right.
went through all this drama in front of everybody for everybody to see, because I messed up on this situation where it could have been corrected behind closed doors, or just away from that area where all the people are at, not being able to see. And it goes to,
can I add to that?
yeah, of course.
So that specific moment where a person sees or experiences that, when they're the most vulnerable, right? And it's in front of a large population of people or a good enough amount of people to bear witness to it. It really does a number on the mental psyche in that situation, because I've experienced that too. Me questioning leaders, me questioning leadership, me always passing judgment preemptively. Like, no, I'm not going to tell him because, look how he acts, look how they conduct themselves. So it does a disservice to the soldiers coming up in the ranks to see that example of leadership and, think that's the norm when it's really not.
Exactly, man.
Yeah.
Maybe
It's sad to see.
back then, right? Maybe back then at a different era, a different generation. But people are becoming more aware of themselves, becoming awakened in a way, I guess, if you want to be in a spiritual sense. And we know that that's not cool anymore. It's not cool to punch somebody in the face or just belittling them in front of the whole organization. It's just, man, what are you doing? You're shooting yourself in the foot. That's what you're doing. Because now you have one less person willing to work for you, willing to give you the effort, willing to correct him or herself and putting in the effort that's needed for you to accomplish whatever you need to accomplish.
I agree. So going to that, when I first became E5 sergeant, I always thought, when I first started as that, I always thought being the angry, always barking orders, instructions, NCO was what I needed to be, is because that's the examples I was pretty much seen, like I was exposed to. With that kind of leadership style, it's not necessarily for the soldiers, like when you ask them to do something, they'll do it. Well, they'll do it because it's out of fear, or it's because they don't want to hear me yell anymore. And I kind of learned over time that you'll get more out of people that you work with if you're just cordial with them. There's no need to yell all the time or be angry all the time, because all that negative energy is just going to come right back in their ability to conduct the mission pretty much. They won't be as motivated coming to work. They won't be as motivated seeing you or just being a part of the organization or the unit or the platoon.
Exactly. And
I
know that
as
you
a
know
platoon
this.
sergeant as well.
Exactly, man. And to add more, I know that you know this, but energy can be created nor destroyed. So you said negative energy, right? It goes from one person to the next person to the next person to the next person. And it creates this negative attraction dynamic to where people feel that, people see it, and they'll be like, what's wrong? Joe Snuffy, are you okay? And, people are going to be not willing to share what just happened with that negative, flipping a desk, punching a wall, yelling at the top of your lungs. For what, man? For what? And this is where the next one comes in. How to incorporate stoicism, not just at work, but in general, man. How do I know you're a big follower of stoicism as well as I am, but I want to get your view on this.
So stoicism, to my definition, is to be calm, right? And then just show little to no emotion in regards to things that happen in your life. My way of stoicism, it's not really cut and dry. I still believe that showing some emotion is warranted because I'm not a robot. So I don't want to completely alienate emotion out of my life, but I acknowledge it. I acknowledge what I feel, and I don't allow it to change my character. So for me, stoicism really helps me understand that not everything is in my control. A lot of times the things that we do is very reactive, and it's always the main priority. This has to get done before COB. Meanwhile, you had 6 different other priorities to take care of. And it's like, when am I going to get some structure to where I can provide you the requirements that you're asking of me, but give me a timeline on the 4, 5, and 6 issues where I can utilize the maximum amount of time to knock out your 3, 2, and 1 priorities. But being able to be resilient and fluid at work strengthens my ability to be stoic, because I understand, I mentally prepare myself for the worst. It sounds bad, but I mentally prepare myself for issues that might arise, and I don't let that affect my mood. I know that whatever can get done that day will get done the next day. And from the point I'm told to do something, I'll put in 100% effort to make sure that's completed. I think a lot of people get lost in emotion, like, why is this happening to me? Why am I the only one doing this? And that's when you resort back to the Army values, selfless service. So when we're giving multiple tasks, it's not just for ourselves, it's for the organization and also for our country. So
Yeah.
that's a little bit of how I apply Stoicism to myself. Um, one of the chapters in the book that we'll talk about later, it talks about the mastering your emotional self, law of rationality. So like there's 3 different phases of it. There's like recognizing your biases, beware of inflaming factors. So that could be people saying certain things that trigger certain emotion out of you, or situations that inspire a really large emotional reaction. And then strategies bring out the rational self, or the I think it's called the makers. I forget what it was called, but it's being able to make a decision based on whatever the situation is, and having clear understanding of what to do after you've made an assessment, just like MDMP, right? So like identify a problem, and you create solutions for that problem. You pick out the one that's going to be the best, and you go forward to complete that, that mission. So that's how I see it. And I try to apply that to myself most of the time. Again, I am human. So I do sometimes get like, why the heck is this happening on a Friday? And we're about to have the weekend, but it's definitely something that helps me as a person as well in my personal life. I think in my personal life as well, I'm more resilient to a lot of things that I would experience because of the military. Also, my wife has a big influence on my development because she sees the things that I don't want to recognize in myself and helps me to improve on my
helps you
faults.
grow.
Yeah. And coming from someone that really loves you, it means something, instead of someone, maybe in passing at work, hey, you need to do this. Like, oh yeah, I'll get to it. But when it's your significant other telling you, like, babe, what is this? Like, you need to do something about it. You could do better. I believe in you. And you need that. Like, I wouldn't be where I am right now if it wasn't for my wife's support all these years.
No, that's for sure, man. She's definitely your backbone. And growth hurts, man. It's not easy to recognize our insufficient traits that we can make better, right? And sometimes we look the other way. We don't want to look at them like, nah, I'll leave it for tomorrow. Or going to the gym, easy as going to the gym. Maybe you don't want to go to the gym today, but there's your significant other pushing you. Hey, you got a ACFT coming up. You got a PT test coming up. Make yourself better. It's too cold outside. You're lazy. I go back to one of my previous episodes, man, and I'll make it quick. Marcus Aurelius, all right? And I love this quote. He said, the birds do the birds, whatever the birds do. The bees do whatever the bees do. But you're there, you're in bed. As a human being, is that what you're made to do? Being in bed, looking up at the ceiling?
Absolutely not.
Get up, do what you're made to do, whether it's go to work, take care of your family, go to soccer practice, you name it, man. But don't be in there just like, oh yeah, I'm feeling lethargic today. I don't want to do anything. No, man, that's not what you came here to do. I'm not saying don't take a knee. I'm not saying don't take a rest. But if you really think about it, it's deeper than that. It's like, okay, I need to get up. I need to do X, Y, Z. I need to make my day more efficient because there's only 24 hours in a day.
Exactly.
So,
and
man, beautiful story.
Yeah. To add to that, there's a lot of people that don't have purpose. They don't have a goal for themselves. They go through life, they wake up, and it's just like on autopilot. What's driving you as a person? Like, what drives you to wake up, get out of bed, and do the things that you need to do? And it goes back to like the whole soldier concept that the Army has. I'm big on family and spiritual, the aspect of it, because you see me at work and everything else checks the block, but mentally, like, where's my support there? Where's my family and all this? How's my family life? Family and all that stuff, like a soldier, once you show that you have some sort of appreciation for them and asking them, hey, is everything good with your family? Is everything oh no, we're good, sorry. And then I end up opening up more, talking about, oh yeah, my mom did this and my brother finally was able to do that. And it just strengthens your relationship with that individual.
Yeah,
Uh,
you get rapport.
yeah, yes,
Yeah, you get rapport. And it's like you said earlier, you're not a robot. It's good to know people and where their background coming from, where they're coming from and all that and what they're dealing with. That's part of our job as well. Not just in our aspect, but across just across the whole dynamic, whether you're in the service or not in the service. It's good to build that rapport with people, man, because then I don't know, you'll build that trust.
yep, I wholly agree.
Ready to go to the next one?
Yeah, sure, let's go.
Okay. Leadership style. You mentioned this earlier. You have to kind of tailor it to the person you're talking to. You can't talk to this person the same way you're talking to that person because maybe they just put it out there. Example, maybe they came from Chicago, and if you talk to them all rough and tough, it's like, no, they're not going to like it. Or maybe they came from, a nice spiritual home where talking loud is not allowed. It's one-on-one conversations, very cordial, like you said. How do we incorporate leadership styles, man? How do you do that? Is it something that you learn or something that is just inherited in you?
Well, I mean, like you speak from of an NCO and just as a man in general, part of the creed, it talks about knowing your soldiers, right? So when you do that initial counseling and assessment of the soldier you have, those are the things that you need to find out about. You know,
Mm.
is this more effective for me to talk to them like this? Or do I have to scream, raise my voice, stuff like that. So as leaders, we just need to be unorthodox with a lot of the ways we articulate our intent and, how we motivate soldiers. Because again, not every soldier is the same. And applying this in the civilian sector, obviously no civilian is the same. Whatever we learned in terms of, uh, you know, personnel management and just talking, working with people, it's the same way we're going to be, you know, put into the civilian sector once we get up. And we have to be able to talk cordial with our coworkers.
Even
It's a
if you're
skill that's learned and it's maintained because it's going to cause that company or that organization to thrive if everyone's communicating, everyone's on the same page, and have a good collective working team.
Hold that thought right there, brother. Cordial, even when the other person isn't cordial with you, as long as you maintain, your stoicism, your emotions in check, let the other person, this is because this is a two-way conversation. Let the other person deflate. Let their emotions calm down. Whatever they're going through, it's going to pass. But you don't be shaken by them, because then you're giving complicit to their emotions and how they dictate. They're basically telling you, I want you to act this way because I'm yelling at you. I want you to act this way because I want you to give me that feedback, give me that resistance. No, this is where you remember all the books you read, all the lessons that you learned throughout your career and life in general. Be cordial, stay stoic, and don't let another person's energy, situation affect you. Still help them, but don't let them shake you. I'm sorry, man. I'm very passionate about that.
No, I agree. And energy can be transmuted if you want to get spiritual with it. So like, if anybody can give you negative energy, you don't have to succumb to it. Just like you said, you can be an alchemist and transmute it to something positive. Because of something negative, you took that experience and you made flowers bloom because of that situation,
Turn that negative emotion into something positive, right?
Yes.
A positive outcome. And people will thank you for that, man. I had people in the past where other coworkers of mine just go rah, 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 rah all the time, right? And I'm the more like, you know what, man, what happened? What went wrong? And then I used to get shamed for it because I was too lack or quote unquote soft. I'm sorry that I have empathy and I have sympathy for whatever it's happening. Now, don't get me wrong. Is it empathy and sympathy every time that happens? Of course not. Use discernment, right? Use right discernment on every situation. But I always found out I had more positive outcome when I talked to him, like you said earlier, just a cordial conversation instead of just going like a torpedo straight at them. Boom. No.
Yeah. I also get more job fulfillment being that way as well, being empathetic to a
Yes.
point, like you just said, because
Just a sermon.
the benefits or what you're reaping, the fruit or the seed that you're planting in that individual, giving them positive reassurance or advice, it happens to all of us. Like I got a ticket last week. Like you'll be okay. You pay your fine, your ticket, and then just just follow the speed limits.
Yeah.
Instead of calling them out their name and saying different things here and there. So
Exactly, man.
wholeheartedly
Exactly.
agree with that.
So ego, back to ego again. It's going to go full circle, right? How to differentiate between the ego coming in, the leadership taking over, and the stoicism whenever they have that feedback back to you, to where like, no, you don't know what you're talking about. Because at the end of the day, we're advisors, right? We can, like you said earlier, they can tell you to kick rocks. Okay, cool beans. But it's the experience behind what you have that showed you otherwise. All right, cool. I gave my 2 cents. They said kick rocks. I'll see what happens. But how do we do that, man? How do we navigate through all those three: leadership, ego, and stoicism? I know
For
it's a
me, this
loaded
is just my
question.
opinion. I'm not a professional. It's just my opinion.
Disclaimer.
But first, I have to learn about myself. I need to know what triggers me, what things could be said that might get me to have a negative response.
Yeah.
Because I'm human. If somebody says something hurtful to me, I'm going to feel a type of way. But in a professional environment, you can't allow words to kind of affect your character,
Yeah.
So, and, your professionalism and the way you're supposed to conduct yourself, especially as a senior non-commissioned officer working with multitude of archetype of personalities that I can not probably name more off my fingers, but knowing yourself, knowing what you're weak towards, it's kind of like one of your other podcasts, you talked about shadow work, where it talks about understanding yourself, understanding the things that get you upset, acknowledging it, and then working towards being able to control those emotions when those triggers happen. And it just all around, just that'll help you become a better individual, because you won't react negatively in an emotional way when a leader tells you no, or says something derogatory or offensive. Although maybe they probably didn't mean it that way, the way they're addressing it is to you offensive, but kind of like recognize how you feel, internalize it, and just get the information that you need from whatever statement that they give you or answer, and just drive on.
You said alchemize it earlier. Use the alchemy, right? Where we turn base
Alchemy.
metals into gold. You can basically do that for every situation, negative situation in your life. It's learning how to do it. That's the hard thing. People forget about like certain books that they read, or the trials and tribulations that they come from. They forget their humble beginnings. And just because they got a certain status now, it's like, oh, I can let that go. They're going to listen to me regardless because I'm in this position, or I'm their boss, I'm their CEO. But it's good to take feedback, man.
Yeah. Seeing that also, what I was alluding to when I was a platoon sergeant, when I was trying my best to be as stoic as possible, but also have empathy for my soldiers and just be more approachable. I wasn't like a stern sergeant first class that was disgruntled in the platoon sergeant office. Go away, go talk to yours. No, I wasn't that way at all. If I had time, I would sit with the soldier if they needed to talk to me. I wouldn't come to work with any negativity. Whatever negativity I had coming from the house, I'd sit in the car, I'd let it go, because my soldiers have nothing to do with it. And I tried my best to make sure they saw the best version of me every day. And it reflected. Their mood was substantial. Like, I could ask them anything and they would do it with a smile on their face. It was that point to where I was so happy to see that, because I was doing that for myself. And what energy I was putting out, I was receiving back with how they were conducting themselves as leaders. Every person I sent to the board passed, like nothing but success stories with all those individuals. So,
And I'm sure they thank you for it,
talking
man.
about alchemy, like that's it right there. It's transmuting energy, putting it out, and then people receiving it and getting blessed by it.
And you said you took your time, and well, before you went to work and everything, you took the time, like maybe 5 or 10 minutes in your POV, in your personal own vehicle, right? Just to kind of meditate on, if you had a bad time at home, don't bring that to work, and vice versa, right? If you had a bad time at work, don't bring it home. But I like that, man. I had to say, I have done that before, where I just like took a deep breath, meditated a little bit, and say, like, you know what, thing I can do about it right now. So I'm not going to let it affect me right now, because the now is the most important thing. And it's not fair for my subordinates or my coworkers or my higher ups to deal with the stuff at work when has nothing to do with work. It's a personal thing that's going on, or I just can't seem to differentiate. They'll, as long as I can bring the positivity and then come back home and fix whatever I need to fix, I'm good. It's a good day. It's a good day.
I agree.
But yeah, man. Any Hail Marys that you want to share that we didn't hit up, that you feel like?
Is this in regards to the books or the quotes?
Anything, man. Anything. Honestly, we pretty much.
I got a few.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
I got a few things. So what I got into a couple of years ago was reading a book called The Strangest Secret. It's from Earl Nightingale. It is pretty much a way for you to focus on whatever you want for yourself. And it's 30 days to where you're always giving yourself affirmations and positive, enforcing positive thinking in order to meet that goal. And then every day that you're putting in 100% effort towards that goal. That's helped me a lot. And one of the biggest quotes from that book, it's in my signature at work anytime I send emails. But it says, we can let circumstances rule us, or we can take charge of rule our lives from within. And when I read that, I really applied that to myself. I'm not a victim of X, Y, Z, as I don't allow whatever happens to victimize me. I don't let that affect me negatively. So I'll take that, transmute it, or do what I need to do, healing, shadow work, whatever, and I will be better because of that experience. I will do better because of that experience. So,
and what's the book called again, brother?
It's called The Strangest Secret by Earl Nightingale.
Okay. It almost sounds like you said The Secret, and it kind of when you said affirmations, I'm like, oh, it kind of reminds me of The Secret. I don't know if you read that book before, but kind of like that.
The second book I am alluding to earlier was the one that we talked about a couple days ago, last week. It's called The Laws of Human Nature. I've read this twice. This is my favorite book. I even find myself reading it sometimes and be reminded of situations with people or at work. It's allowed me to understand other people's actions or character.
Yeah.
And then it allows me to be empathic and kind of understand how they think and why they think this way. And again, I don't allow negativity to try to affect me too much. It's taught me how to be understanding of others,
of course,
and understand the things in myself that I need to work on too. It's really helped me as a person and as an NCO. So I do recommend that book.
Thank you. And for those who don't know what an NCO is, it's a non-commissioned officer. Okay, I know this is more. Just disclaimer, FYI, for your situational awareness, non-commissioned officer. Gotcha. But yeah, man, that book showed me a lot too, man. It showed me a lot, and it took me like a month to finish it. Again, disclaimer, I'm an Audible guy, so I love my Audibles, but like I said before in previous episodes, I like to have the hard copy of the book. It's kind of like it showed me like what books I have gone through thanks to Audible. But yeah, man, that's a great book. It's funny that you pull out Robert Greene, because my book is The 48 Laws of Power. The 48 Laws of Power, right? Great book.
We've had talks about that book.
We have, man. We have. And let me tell you, Great book. Some people think it's manipulative, like, oh, I don't want to read it. It's manipulative. But I like to look at the other side of it. It teaches you not to be naive. It teaches you not to be taken over by other people, right? Because life's a game. Let's be honest. It's a transactional game. What can you do for me at this time? Or what's the benefit? What benefit can I get from it? So it teaches you to really take off those, like I said earlier to you, man, the rose-colored glasses and see the world for what it really is and protect yourself, basically. Yeah, that's my thing on it, man. But with that being said, I know I already said any Hail Marys, man, but I can't thank you enough for being on this podcast, on this episode, and I hope the viewers got some out of it. Any last words that you want to say, man, before we say peace out and everything?
No, again, it's a truly an honor to be on this podcast. I really hope whatever I said helps someone out there that watches. I don't, again, I'm not like a professional or expert or a guru
Disclaimer.
of anything.
Disclaimer.
I'm just a guy living my life, and based off my experiences, this is what's helped me along the path. And I'm still growing. I'm still developing as a person. The army is just one aspect of all of us. Eventually we'll hang our hats and we'll be, Mr. Whatever your last name is, right? So, and so it's just broad, or Mr. or Mrs., whoever's watching. But life goes on. Life goes on. It's not all the army, and a lot of the things that we learn in the military, how to work with people, seeing how people operate, not accepting negative energy, doing what's best for yourself, healing yourself, all that stuff still applies when you're out. So I really am honored again to be on your podcast, and I hope my little 40 minutes of talking helps someone out there.
It did, man. I promise you it did. And it's slowly growing, right? It's slowly growing, and I'm happy for the support and the love that I get on this podcast, and people like you, man, that helped me out, that said, yes, let me say my stuff on there. Let me say what I know. And again, this is
I was
not
nervous,
about,
but I said yes.
yeah. Hey, man, you said yes, and we're here. We're getting it done.
Yeah.
And it's just people sharing their experiences. By no means are we like any medical experts or anything like that. We're not gurus. We're people sharing experiences. And what better way for another person to learn than through other people's experiences, so they don't go through the same trials and tribulations that we went through. If I can help another person not go through the same things, I'll say my piece. But again, man, thank you so much for being on here. And hopefully we'll have you out again in the future, man. We'll talk about something else.
I can't wait.
All right, brother. We're out.
All right, take care.